I'm in Bamberg at the moment in Germany, in Bavaria, I think it's southern Bavaria, and here at the Otto Friedrich University as a guest professor hosted by my friend Professor Thomas Wabel. Now, Thomas and I are working on a project which is related to some of the work that I've been doing over the last couple of years on religion and politics. So not so much a constructive political theology, but something of a sort of a descriptive political theology, and looking particularly at the ways in which religious individuals and religious groupings, particularly prominent religious individuals, responded to the COVID-19 measures that were put in place during the pandemic. And so Thomas and I are each studying our own contexts, what happened in South Africa for me, and what happened here in Germany for him. And we're wanting to see what role religious thinking, and particularly Christian thinking, played in the ways in which people responded to COVID-19 mitigation measures. So things like, for example, social distancing, the call for religious groupings not to meet for worship. I know that was a controversial one for many Christian persons wanting to meet together. But also things like, for example, the call for vaccination, how people responded to that, and of course things like social distancing, mask wearing, and then just COVID-19 itself, the coronavirus, how people thought about this disease and what their perspectives were on science. So it's making for some very, very interesting discussion between the two of us, and I must say I'm really enjoying my time here in beautiful Bamberg. But let me tell you just for a moment how we are going about doing our respective studies. So what we are doing predominantly, and by the way, I hope the water noise isn't too bad. I'm standing here on one of the beautiful bridges near the old city hall here in Bamberg. And in fact, I wrote a chapter about this bridge here, which was published just recently. I'll put a link to that in the show note. It was entitled "Can Public Theology Bridge the Divide?" and it came out of the 2018 Global Network for Public Theology conference, which was hosted here in Bamberg. But yeah, I hope the water noise is not too high. Let's see. We'll see when the video plays back. I hope it's not too bad. But yeah, methodologically, what are we doing? So we are wanting to do both a literature study, a qualitative literature study, but then also do some qualitative empirical work. So we are using certainly statements that were put out by ecumenical groupings in South Africa, for example, the South African Council of Churches, the Religious Leaders Forum, encouraging people to wait to celebrate, not to gather for worship, encouraging persons to vaccinate. We're also looking at other materials, so not only published statements, but also sermons and speeches and media comments that were given by elected religious leaders or chosen religious leaders, so persons who represent ecumenical groupings. But then, of course, we're also looking at other material. I, for example, have managed to find some very, very interesting stuff, both in the news media, but also sermons and statements, YouTube videos in particular, produced by some evangelical and African initiated church leaders around their responses to COVID-19 and the coronavirus pandemic and the measures that governments put in place or encouraged people to follow. I also managed via my friend Ian Nell, a colleague at the University of Stellenbosch, to gain access to a range of sermons that pastors preached over the COVID pandemic, and am able to glean something from that. And I've also been working with the ways in which, particularly in South Africa, where 86% of the population are Christian, how even government leaders, people who hold political office, express their faith during that time. So I'm hoping that's going to make for quite a rich mix of things. Now, just to say, this is what in Afrikaans we would call a steekproef. It's a test sort of bit of research. So we are hoping at least to produce out of this two initial research articles, one on South Africa and one on Germany, and then maybe a third article in which we discuss if there are some coherences and what the differences are between our respective contexts and why we think those differences may have been. But the idea is to use this research to show that in the larger project of religion and public life. So both Thomas and I work in chairs in public theology. He has the Dietrich Bonhoeffer chair here, and I obviously am at the Beyers Naudé Center in Stellenbosch, and we're very interested in the ways in which public life impacts upon the ways in which religious persons order themselves, what they think and believe, and how they engage their beliefs, but of course also in the opposite direction, how religious communities impact upon public life. So for example, during COVID-19 on issues of safety or health or well-being. So we are hoping out of this to establish a slightly longer project, maybe something that will run for 2 or 3 years, to involve perhaps some doctoral students, some postdocs, and hopefully out of this to be able to produce a book. Yeah, so I'm here in Bamberg for a month, just short of a month actually, as a guest professor. And that means that I've been doing some seminars, doctoral seminars. This afternoon I have another doctoral seminar in political science actually, and looking at political emotions. I've been doing some teaching and I'll be doing a public lecture on the 3rd of November. And yeah, so it's a wonderful, wonderful privilege to be able to be here at the Otto Friedrich University and to be with my friend Thomas. At the end of the month, I move across to Berlin, where I'll be working with my friend Thorsten Meyreis. Professor Meyreis and I have been working together for a number of years on issues of public theology. I'm a member of the Berlin Institute for Public Theology, and he is a member of the Beyers Naudé Center for Public Theology and one of our extraordinary professors. And there we'll be working a little bit on a project called The Limits of Neighborly Love, looking specifically at the ways in which Christian thinking has engaged notions of social welfare in our respective contexts. So thanks for watching this video. I need to get to the office, and it's a beautiful day here in Bamberg. I've taken the long route around. It's only about a kilometer or so from the office, just to enjoy the early morning air. But thanks for watching. I'd love to hear from you what you think of the project, any advice or guidance. You can get hold of me by leaving a comment in the show notes, or a note on Twitter at Digital Dion, or on Instagram, or of course on my webpage dionfoster.com. So thanks for watching.